Only 8 rounds of golf left in the PGA Tour season. 50 players are still alive. 30 make it to East Lake. Scottie Scheffler coming off a win in Memphis. So the question this week is pretty simple. Can Scottie go back-to-back and drive away with a BMW? Or is somebody else going to steal the keys? Belle Reve is long. It rewards power. It puts a premium on approach play. And with the season on the line, this isn't the week to show up without firing on all cylinders. Tonight, we break down who's built for Belle Reve, where the betting value might be hiding. What do you say we talk some golf, find an edge, and have some fun tonight? What's happening, everybody? It's Off the Hook, sports talk that pays off. As always, we are powered by Pikkit. And welcome into another edition of Tee to Green and Tommy Trends. My boys Mookie and Nash, well, they're around here somewhere. And neither one of them could really give a shit about golf. But somehow they still run this entire circus. So if this show goes off the rails, just know management has already been notified. And by management, I mean 2 dogs staring at me waiting to go for a walk. Tonight we're all in on the BMW Championship, Belle Reve Country Club, St. Louis, Missouri. The top 50 in the FedEx Cup are going to move on. We have the top 50 in the FedEx Cup. The top 30 will move on, and 20 guys will be going home for the season, and their season will be over. So we're going to break down the course, the weather, and what the 2018 PGA Championship trends have to do with this championship coming up tomorrow. The key stats, the long iron profile, the players who actually fit this course, the guys who keep checking boxes, and eventually, who can beat Scottie? If you're new here, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, follow us on X at OTH Sports Pod. We're here all week. Golf, MLB, NFL, Tommy Trend, Tommy's Take, Pikkit Play of the Day, and whatever the hell else comes across in the sports world that gives us something to argue about. So if that sounds like your kind of mess, your kind of chaos, come for the bets, stay for the hang. And important note before we get into the course profile and break down everything tonight, the official Off the Hook BMW Championship card will be posted on our X page at OTH Sports Pod. It'll also be posted on our Pikkit page, which is at Off the Hook. So you'll find it there before the tee times tomorrow. Tee times, late tee times tomorrow, 10:03 Eastern Time. That would be 10:03 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow morning. Because, look, we only have 50 players, so it's 25-2, so I'm just teeing it up at Belle Reve tomorrow. So all the official Off the Hook plays will be posted before tee times tomorrow. So what do you say we tee it up at Belle Reve and see who's going to win this BMW Championship? And look, we have 8 rounds of golf left. That's it. So it's pretty much this is like the business end of the PGA Tour season. 2 more weeks of golf, which means football is right around the corner. And then, of course, college basketball, NBA. We'll have hockey action, that'll get us through the winter. And pretty much no more golf until the Masters. Now there's fall golf, so we'll probably still throw a couple shekels on some fall golf. But really, for the most part, golf is over just about. So we're winding down here. So we got BMW Championship, that's on tap this week, and then Tour Championship next week at East Lake. And we're not going to get into it tonight. We'll get into it on tomorrow's show. That'll be a full show here tomorrow afternoon, early evening-ish. But we'll get into the whole Live Golf debacle and what that means for Live Golf 2.0, if that's going to happen or not, and the future of Live Golf. But tonight it's all PGA Tour. It's all BMW Championship talk tonight. And look, we have the top 50 players who survived in Memphis last week coming to Belle Reve Country Club, the second leg of the FedExCup Playoffs. And look, there's no safety net anymore. 20 players are going home this week, and their season will be over. Again, no cut this week, obviously. So everybody's playing all 4 days. Some are not going to get past this week. And look, we said this. The question's pretty simple. Can anybody beat Scottie? So Scheffler finally gets it done after, and it's really bad that we're saying that because he won in January, and for Scheffler, it's a drought, right? He hasn't won in like 6-7 months. I mean, there's guys like Jordan Spieth who haven't won in a few years. Fowler hasn't won in quite some time. So, look, it's abnormal for Scheffler, but, he's got a pretty – look, we're going to go through all this tonight, and there's a pretty good case that Scottie Scheffler is going to run this thing back this week. And there's a lot of trends that support that in the FedExCup playoffs, that there's multi-winners in these 3 tournaments. So we're going to go through everything, right? Can somebody beat Scottie? And who's going to beat Scottie, if anybody? Look, Scottie played the final 54 holes at TPC Southwind last week in Memphis, 15 under par, right? And second place over those same 54 holes was 9 under. So Scheffler really put it together. And he said, it was kind of funny. I don't have the clip. I should have clipped it, but they asked him. So if you didn't watch it, if you didn't see, his caddy, Ted Scott, had grown a little mustache, and Scheffler told him it looked horrible. And somebody asked him, because he didn't like his mustache, they said, well, are you going to make him shave it now? He said, absolutely not. He's like, I just won. So I guess Ted Scott's going to be rocking the mustache throughout the rest of these FedEx Cup playoffs. Maybe that's the good luck charm that Scheffler needed, was for Ted Scott to grow a mustache. But yeah, so Scheffler, is he going to drive away with a BMW this week? We'll see. I mean, he's pretty much locked himself into number 1 position going into East Lake. And it'll get interesting this week for sure. Because like we said, winning consecutive playoff events it's not that unusual as you would think. So since the FedEx Cup playoffs began in 2007, 12 of 19 playoffs have featured a multiple event winner. And here's some of the names who have won multiple times in the FedEx Cup playoffs since 2007. Tiger, VJ, Rory, Stenson, Horschel, Jason Day, Bryson, Dustin Johnson, Patrick Cantlay, Victor Hovland. And even after the playoffs were shortened to 3 tournaments, it still happened 3 times in 7 years. And it makes sense when you think about it. The fields keep shrinking. Somebody finishes on winning form. Somebody gets hot. So you're not facing 150 golfers every week. You start off with 70 and then 50 and then 30. So that's why it's a lot easier to get a repeat winner. So look, he's just got to be better than 49 other people. He is the best golfer in the world, right? So with a shrinking field, already looks like he's dialed in and ready to go. Now, we're not going to hand him the trophy just yet, because Belle Reve gives a few very specific places where somebody might actually be able to challenge him, and we'll get into that. And that's what we're going to figure out tonight. So here's what we got on tap to go through this. And again, if you're new here, what we do a little bit different than maybe some other golf podcast. And it's just the way I prefer to do it, because there's a lot of different ways you can bet on golf. If you're new to betting golf, if you've been betting golf, you obviously know that there's a lot of different ways to bet all 4 days. If you're new to betting golf, you'll find out very quickly that even though your first round leader might be cooked, or maybe your outright's cooked, whatever the case may be, you can still find edges throughout the 4 days. So what we like to do here at Off the Hook is we like to give you a complete tournament blueprint that you can use throughout all 4 days of this tournament. You can go back, you can replay this, and all these trends, these stats will carry over for all 4 days, right? And it'll even help you as we get into to live betting, right? So we're going to go through everything. We'll go through the course breakdown. Obviously, weather. We always say weather is a major factor here. Now, this week, maybe not so much as last week. It's still going to be hot, but we'll get into that. And then, obviously, the trends, the key stats, course history, some comparable courses. And then we'll get into first-round leaders, who checks multiple boxes, who's built for Belle Reve. And we'll give you some names who we have on our list as potential bets that we're going to fire off some outrights, some long shots, best bets potentially, and then we'll see who makes the final card. We'll put this fucking thing through the flux capacitor, and it'll spit out a card, and and then we'll post it on X and on our Pikkit page. So we're going to give you an entire blueprint here for this entire tournament for all 4 days for you to go back and go through it and help you out as you place bets throughout all 4 days here. So let's get into the course breakdown and how this course is going to play here this week at Belle Reve Country Club in St. Louis, Missouri. So it is a par 70. 74.48 is the yardage here at Belle Reve. Now, this makes it one of the longer courses that these guys will see on tour all season. But don't let the par 70 fool you, because you're not getting 4 par 5s where everybody can feast. There are only 2 par 5s. So typically, par 5s are where you can make up some strokes. But again, with only 2 of them, you're going to be limited as far as scoring. And these aren't 2 gimme par 5s. These 2 are both monster par 5s. Number 8 is going to play around 613 yards, and then number 17 is 624 from the back tee. Then you got 6 par 4s measuring at least 460 yards, depending upon where they're placing the tees, and they can stretch those beyond 500 based on the tee placement. So then you got some par 3s mixed in there. You're going to have around 170, 187, 215, and one of them's 237 yards. So before we look at one golfer, right, we already know long iron play is going to matter here just by the whole stats that I kind of just went through with the par 5s, the par 4s, the par 3s, and we'll get into all that. So a little bit of the course history here. This isn't some random golf course that got handed a playoff event. This place has championship history. We said that the 2018 PGA Championship was the last event that was held here. And we'll go into some trends with that and how it may or may not affect the BMW Championship starting tomorrow. This is a current Robert Trent Jones Sr. designed, and this opened in 1960, and then 5 years later, Belle Reve became the youngest course to ever host a U.S. Open. Gary Player won that. He completed the career Grand Slam, and Nick Price won his first major here. The 1992 PGA Championship. Camilo Villegas, he won the 2008 BMW Championship. That was his first PGA Tour victory. And then in 2018, Brooks Koepka won the PGA Championship at 16 under, and that was with Tiger Woods pretty much coming unglued on that Sunday. Shooting 64 and finished 2 shots behind Koepka. That was a hell of a tournament if you can go back that far and rewind in your memory bank there. And in case you're wondering what Brooks Koepka is doing, because he's not in the field, he didn't make the FedEx playoffs. This is what Brooks Koepka is up to. I thought this was pretty funny. He's ripping tequila shots, got the rollie on, and just really doesn't give a fuck what's happening. So that's Brooks Koepka there. Not golfing this weekend, but still knows how to have a good time. But so no Brooks Koepka. But 2018. So if we look back from 2018 and how Belle Reve played then, and how it's potentially going to play throughout the next 4 days here, we're going to go through some of that. So we're going to use 2018, I guess, exclusively tonight, but we're not going to just blindly copy everything that we saw in 2018. But there are going to be some trends that we're going to go through here, and some similarities, right? Because we haven't seen an event here in 8 years. So mainly this track has changed. So the 2018 PGA Championship, it was wet. It was really wet. Fairways were soft. The greens were extremely receptive in 2018. Wedges were basically splatting into the putting surfaces. Even 6 irons were hitting and stopping. And then after that, they completely ripped the greens apart, rebuilt the greens, new drainage, new mix, new bent grass was put in. They scanned the original green contours and essentially rebuilt the same greens from the bottom up after the 2018 PGA Championship. So visually and architecturally, the character is going to remain with this course. And agronomically, you like that fucking word? It's a different animal. They removed trees, they've opened up sight lines, improved air movement, so they say. Lengthened 6 holes. The 2026 setup is approximately 130 yards longer than 2018. So 2018 gives us the DNA, but 2026 we're getting the evolved version now. And look, it's not Augusta, it's not Pete Dye, it's not some gigantic strategic puzzle on every tee. What Bellerive is going to do, it's basically going to look at you and it's going to say, here's the fucking shot, hit it. That's what it's going to do. Right? There aren't many blind shots, not many tricks, not many alternate routes in this track. It's an execution style golf course. Drive it, put it in position, hit the correct portion of a giant green, do it again and again and again. Rinse, wash, repeat. That's what you're doing here, but it's not going to be easy. Okay. So let's look at distance versus accuracy. The fairways here average approximately 34 yards wide. So it's not winged foot, right? You have room, but there's trap. You better use that room. So if we look back to 2018, players hitting approaches from the fairway found the green 79% of the time. From the rough, 42% of the time. So again, distance matters, but not as much as accuracy, right? You want to be accurate when you're hitting the fairway. You don't want to be in the rough. I mean, 79% of the time you're hitting the green versus 42% of the time from the rough. And then if we look, the average fairway proximity in 2018 was 30 feet, 4 inches. The average proximity from the rough in 2018 was 51 feet, 4 inches. That rough proximity number ranked 5th hardest on tour. So basically what the blueprint was telling you, it's not... it isn't hit every fairway. It isn't swing out of your fucking shoes. It's power and control. So what you basically want to do is hit it far enough to shorten the long approaches. As we said, the 2 par 5s are monsters. Even the par 4s are very long. So your long irons are really going to be important this week, which we'll get into. So again, you want to hit far enough so that you can shorten your approach shot and then keep the control to stay on the Zoysia green, right? So, and then we look here, distance. So if you look at distance does have an edge, okay? If we look back at 2018, Koepka was first in driving distance. Thomas Pieters was second. John Rahm was 7th. Justin Thomas was 10th. Gary Woodland was 11th. And then we look at driving accuracy. Tiger 74th. Adam Scott 63rd. Terrell Hatton 63rd. Justin Thomas and Pieters were tied for 51st. So yes, you got to keep the ball in play here. But the 2018 leaderboard pretty much paints a clear picture, right? Distance was more valuable than pure accuracy, at least then, right? But you have to still be accurate. It's one of those balances, right? You got to balance it out because, again, if you're hitting from the rough, your approach shots, you're hitting the green 42% of the time versus from the fairway 79% of the time. So you have to be strategic and you have to balance those two out. Fairway bunkers. Many of these fairways you're going to see, these bunkers were repositioned into the 280 to 320 range. So they specifically moved these bunkers further downrange to remain relevant as guys are now hitting much longer in less than 10 years ago. So 8 years ago, a lot has changed in 8 years. Types of balls being used, swing speed, distance, right? But, if they wouldn't have did that, these guys would have easily cleared these bunkers. Now, some of these guys are still going to carry some of this shit, right? So they're still going to be able to carry some of these bunkers, even though they moved them down range. But the 280 to 320 yard range is where these bunkers, or the fairway bunkers, are now repositioned. So again, power, going back to power, it doesn't necessarily mean shorten the approach. It's basically taking the hazards out of the equation. So speaking of hazards, water. This isn't TPC Southwind, but don't get crazy. Look, Memphis, there's a lot of water hazards. Guys were dunking balls in the water all week long. Harris English, perfect example. We took Harris English for a first round leader, and I think he was a stroke back. I think Spieth was 5 under and in the clubhouse, and Harris English was Spieth was 5 under. Harris English, I believe he was 4 under, and he was on 18 and dunked a shot right in the water, ended up with a double bogey, and was 2 under after the first round. So lots of water balls last week, not so much this week because it's not TPC Southwind, but water is going to come into play here, and we'll get to that. In 2018, 159 balls were in the water. That was the 10th most on tour that season. And there's 6 holes that specifically will bring water into play on your approach shot. Those would be number 2, number 3, number 6, number 11, number 13, number 17. And that's important, right? Because a lot of this water isn't sitting like 40 yards left to where somebody really gives a shit, right? It's guarding the greens. So again, approach play, distance control, correct target, course management, it's all going to come into play here. And the greens, look, big greens doesn't mean easy. So if we look at the putting surfaces, the Bellerive Country Club greens average approximately 7,500 square feet. These are some of the largest on tour. Okay, so you think, all right, so easy green in regulation, right? Well, not exactly, right? Because they're broken up by ridges, tiers, subtle slopes, different target sections. Look, with these large greens, they can really maneuver and switch out these pin placements and make it tricky. You can hit the green, but you could still then have a 60-foot putt for birdie. So proximity matters here. And obviously 3-putt avoidance, which is pretty much a story every week, right? Because the greens in regulation, you don't really tell the whole story, but it could be a lot of it, right? Again, with 7,500 square feet of greens, it's the proximity that's going to matter. You don't just want to be on the green. And again, the bunkers. We talked about fairway bunkers. They moved those down range to that 280 to 320 mark, right, to kind of make it a little bit tricky for some of these guys to clear it. Some will clear it, some won't, some will lay up. Now, 48 greenside bunkers come into play. And in 2018, approximately 34% of all around the green shots came from the sand. A typical tour venue or a tour event, it's about 23%. So more shots around the green here are going to come from the sand than a typical tour event. So we're looking at sand saves, sand proximity, what players are capable of handling long bunker shots created by these giant greens. Right? So there's a lot here. Even though, again, we said the course pretty much says, here it is, hit it, right? It's not tricky layout. It's not a tricky track. It's pretty much what you see is what you get, but you can't be super aggressive and just bomb it, or you're going to be in trouble. And then let's talk about the finish and the finishing stretch of holes here. This is really, and we talked about last week at TPC Southwind with 15, 16, 17, 18. You could see some chaos and some shit happen, water balls, which we saw. Again, the finish here, it's going to be chaotic, and you're going to see some shit happen. maybe a tournament won or lost here, maybe a guy's season, maybe a difference of him going home or him moving on to Eastlake. So if we look at 15 through 18, so hole 15 is a 495-yard par 4, 16 is 237-yard par 3, 17, 624-yard par 5, and 18, 462-yard par 4. 17 is the scoring opportunity with the long par 5, if you're a good iron player. And if you're not hitting your irons well, you're going to get cooked on that hole. So here's a twist, though. This event has another tee that's around 550 yards. So depending on the setup, 17 can either play 624, which is, I mean, that's a huge, that's huge. That's a 3-shot monster if the tee box placement is playing at 624, right? Or like I said, it could also play 550, which could be a very reachable par 5 where somebody chasing on Sunday can attack. So again, it's going to matter where these tee boxes are set up, and they have a lot of flexibility. That's a big difference between 550 and 624. So what the redesign did, the redesign straightened the hole here, and there's a creek there. So it put the creek immediately along the right side of this hole. So if you look the next 4 days, Thursday through Sunday, you got to check where they're putting this fucking tee box on 17, because that's going to completely change the scoring profile of this closing stretch, right? It's going to matter. So again, 15, 16, 17, 18, tough finishing stretch, and 17, be mindful of where the tee box is placed, because it's anywhere from 550 to 624. So again, could be the difference. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of, I don't know. I just think it's going to get interesting in these last 4 holes this week, with a lot on the line, a lot of pressure mounting. Because again, 20 guys are going home for the season for the most part. So, and then we always talk about weather. So this course architecture is pretty much, so look, it's pretty much useless if we don't know how we're playing and what the weather is, because just like last week in Memphis, middle of summer, middle of August, hot as hell. St. Louis, same thing, hot, humid, it's uncomfortable. You're going to get upper 80s for the highs, and then it's going to feel like 100, 105. So, triple-digit heat indexes. Now, what I did here, there's some conflicting weather reports. So, Thursday, Friday, hot, humid, uncomfortable, just shitty. You'll see pretty much the same as last week. Guys trying to cool off, towels in their head, Scheffler putting his hand in coolers, which, by the way, I did not know that. And I guess it makes sense. I mean, he grew up in the Texas heat, so he would know how to deal with this golfing in Texas in summer when it's fucking hot as hell. But apparently putting your hands, I thought it was funny as hell. I'm like, what the fuck's he doing putting his hands in the cooler? But apparently putting your hands in the cooler, it cools you down faster. It somehow gets through the bloodstream faster, cools your body down. Who would have thought, right? So maybe you'll see a lot more people digging their hands in the cooler this week, as it's going to be hot, miserable, uncomfortable. Now, wind, we'll get into wind in a second, but rain, though, they did have almost 4 inches of rain this month. So 6 inches above normal year to date here. So what that means is these bent grass greens during the St. Louis August heat, to maintain those are a pain in the ass, right, if it's dry. And the superintendent, I heard it, I think it was Golf Channel, or maybe I read on the PGA Tour website, but he said, look, hot, humid between 2 major rivers, storms can pop up. If it's dry, that's really hard to manage these bent grass greens. So basically, they're trying to balance these greens out and keep them in good shape. Um, and not have it play super soft, right? They want to have it firm, fast, but when you're middle of summer in St. Louis, there's always a threat of pop-up thunderstorms that could completely change how this course plays. So look, you don't really automatically assume because they put these new greens in that the new greens are going to be like putting on concrete. The ground's wet. Like I said, they're 6 inches above rainfall year to date here, and they got almost 4 inches of rain this month. So a little bit saturated with greens, a little bit softer, and you could see a little bit more receptive greens than typical August St. Louis heat would present here on this course. So if these greens remain receptive throughout these 4 days that these elite iron players can attack, you could see some low scores here. Like I'm thinking scoring wise, 16 under, maybe we get to 20 under. Again, depending upon weather. And then we said wind, right? Now I heard different weather reports as far as wind for this weekend. Tomorrow, like single digit wind. Morning, all 4 days are going to be the better of the two options versus morning and afternoon. So the morning guys will have an advantage. Friday afternoon, apparently supposed to be a little bit the windier of the 4 days, maybe 10, 15 mile an hour winds in the afternoon. Morning should be like 5, 7 mile an hour winds, pretty much nothing. And then Friday afternoon to be a little bit heavier on the wind side. And then a cold front's supposed to move through Friday night into Saturday. Now that's something to watch too, because if they get rain, if the cold front pushes through, then that's going to change how the course is going to play on Saturday. So again, some weather reports I'm seeing 15 to maybe 20 mile an hour winds. Some are saying maybe 10 mile an hour. I don't know. It's conflicting reports, because weather people don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So again, just keep in mind with the wind and the updated weather forecast when you're doing live betting, because that's going to make a difference, especially, again, morning guys, what it appears right now, should have an advantage. Virtually no wind morning tee times, and then the wind will pick up in the afternoon, and then obviously as the day goes on, the threat of pop-up storms increase throughout the day. So, again, it's not going to be like a 30 mile an hour wind gust and shit like that. But the 10, 15, high teens, maybe if it pushes 20 miles an hour, that could make a difference here. And especially betting first round leaders, maybe lean a little bit more toward the early morning guys. We showed the trend last week here on Tee to Green, where the early morning guys over the last 5 years had an advantage as first-round leaders came from the morning wave of guys versus the afternoon wave. And again, happened, Jordan Spieth was your first-round leader last week and at 5 under, and I think his tee time was like 9:10 or 9:15, something like that. So he fared well in the morning. So again, keep in mind the weather forecast and get the updates on that. And we'll be here throughout the tournament for all 4 days, giving you the updates and whatnot. But again, some conflicting reports on the wind. But again, also the threat of pop-up storms throughout the weekend. But other than that, it's just going to be hot, miserable, and uncomfortable. So let's go through. We'll build this blueprint, model, guide, whatever you want to call it. Now that we've kind of given you the course history, we'll talk about who actually wins here and where these trends come from, the evidence that we're kind of putting this blueprint together with. And then we'll get you some guys that check multiple boxes as we go through how they fit this course and some similar courses here. So obviously we said we're not going to completely rely on the data from 2018 at the PGA Championship, but we're going to take some of it into account here as we go through. So again, we said it's the same course, same general time of year, just a different setup, completely different greens, longer. Course is playing longer now. What did I say, 130 yards, I think, longer. So again, it's not really, the scripture here. But again, we can't ignore the 2018 set up and how the course played. So trend number 1, tee to green. This is going to be the strongest trend for the BMW Championship here at Belle Reve this weekend. 8 of the 11 players who finished in the top 10 were top 10 in strokes gained tee to green. So again, this is throughout their, and we'll get to how guys are playing leading up to this event and coming into the event. This trend here, the tee to green trend, is winners, how they played throughout that week. So their tee to green stats, 8 of 11 players who finished in the top 10 were top 10 in strokes gained tee to green, and 10 of the 11 were in the top 15. Only 1 of the 11 was top 10 in strokes gained putting. So again, the strongest statistical trend here at Belle Reve is tee to green. And again, you're going to see that, and it tells you, right? So the only 1 of the 11 was top 10 in strokes gained putting. So that's why we're really saying that tee to green is going to be your main trend here to look at, right? So I guess we finally found our golf course. Tee to green isn't just the name of this fucking show here. It's basically the fucking course handicap when we look at it. So, so if we look at the 2018 leaderboard, this is one of the, if you look back, one of the strongest statistical leaderboards that you'll see, because every single one of the top of those 11 top 10 finishers, they were better tee to green than putting, which is bizarre. So let me repeat that. Every single one of the 11 top 10 finishers was better tee to green than putting. Koepka, who was your winner at the PGA Championship in 2018 here, Koepka was second in tee to green, 18th in putting. Tiger, 8th tee to green, 10th in putting. Adam Scott, 16th tee to green, 19th putting. John Rahm, 12th tee to green, 22nd putting. Francisco Molinari, 3rd tee to green, 53rd in putting. Justin Thomas, 5th tee to green, 45th putting. Gary Woodland, 10th tee to green, 31st putting. Terrell Hatton, 4th in tee to green, 58th in putting. And this is my favorite when I pull this out. Stuart Sink, 1st in the entire field, tee to green. You want to guess what his putting was? 71st. And this fucking guy still finished tied for 4th. That pretty much tells you everything you need to know, right? You don't need somebody who's going to go out there and make everything from the fucking parking lot. You need somebody who's going to flush the golf ball. And that's why tee to green is the first box that we're checking this week, and said it's the most important trend as we go into this tournament. Second trend, approach play. We kind of led up to that before we even got here, right? So if we isolate the iron play, the tee to green numbers weren't being driven solely by just bombing it off the tee. We said that a couple minutes ago. It's not just going to be grip and rip and bomb it. 8 of the 11 top 10 finishers were top 16 strokes gained on their approach play, right? And then it goes even further as we research this. 14 of the top 15 finishers gained at least a half stroke per round on their approach play. And then 10 of those 15 gained at least 1 full stroke per round. Look, it's not noise. It's not, oh, irons might be kind of important this week. Look, the fucking golf course is telling us basically what it wants. Look, you combine that with these long par 4s, the long par 3s, the 600-yard plus par 5s, water garden, the approach shots, large green, 7,500 square feet of greens that are divided into target sections and tiers. The rough penalty, we said, if you're hitting your approach shot from the fairway, 79% are going to hit the green versus the rough, 42%. I mean, so approach is one of the heaviest weights this week. When we started, putting these players together, writing up guys who we thought had a chance to either placement finish, an outright winner, that was one of the ones that weighted heavy for this week here. So while we're talking about the iron play, let's look at the proximity buckets. Where are these shots coming from? Where are a bulk of your iron and your approach shots? What range are they coming from? Because we got to go a layer deeper here, and not all approach play is created equal, right? So if we're handicapping, I don't know, a 6,900-yard golf course where everybody's hitting wedges, I don't really give a shit how you're playing from 225 out. But Bellerive, different story. Original course model identified 150 to 200 and 200 plus. Those were the sweet spots for your approach play. Again, that's the original course model. So those would be the two most important proximity buckets going into the BMW Championship, right? And then we looked further and peeled that onion back a little bit more and found supporting evidence that says 175 to 250 is really where somebody could gain ground on Scheffler. Because between those long par fours, the 215, there's the 215 yard and a 237 yard par three. And then second shots into those monster par fives, you're hitting important golf shots from that long range. So again, we talked about rain. We talked about how the course is wet. It's oversaturated. Maybe some pop-up thunderstorms throughout this tournament. But if this moisture and these greens are already a little bit more receptive than what they're used to seeing in the St. Louis heat in August, then that keeps these greens a little bit more receptive, and it makes those iron shots more attackable. So you're not necessarily hitting a 205-yard iron onto a concrete putting surface and then just praying it doesn't roll off. If they're receptive, these elite long ball strikers with their irons can actually fire and be aggressive and attack these greens, which is why I think based on the rainfall they've got, the pop-up storms we may see, the final score is like 16 to 20 under-ish is what I'm thinking. What did I say? Koepka was 16 under when he won the PGA Championship. And again, different greens, courses playing longer, but the moisture that's already in these greens is making it more receptive right from the start, which is going to make the guys want to attack this course. And you're going to see these guys, these elite long iron players are going to do very well. So now let's talk about Scheffler for a second, because this is kind of interesting. So, and this is where we said, this is why we said this 175 to 250 yard on the approach play. This is where somebody could challenge Scheffler, and here's why. So in this season on tour in 2026, Scheffler's performance from 175 to 250 has pretty much been his relative weakness all season, right? So he's outside of the top 40 in the 175 to 250 yard range on his approach shot. This has really pretty much been his weakest part of his game, even though he struggled putting here and there. If you look back, though, statistically, this has been the weakest spot of his game throughout 2026 on the PGA Tour, which is why we said this relative weakness is where somebody could potentially make a run at Scheffler here. So, look, I'm not saying Scheffler can't hit a 6-iron. Of course he can hit a 6-iron. He's the best golfer in the world. But again, this is where the angles come in. Live betting, who you're picking for replacement finish, right? Maybe you're taking a flyer on, say, Victor Hovland. Hovland can sure as shit challenge Scheffler. Remember the Travelers Championship? The playoff? Hovland didn't buckle and went to the playoff, and he won it. So you're trying to find an area where another elite golfer can actually gain something on the best fucking player in the world. Well, here's your nugget. 175 to 250, Scheffler's struggled all year. This is where somebody can make up ground on Saturday, Sunday, right? If it's close. So, and we already said Hovland. There's a couple others I wrote down that could potentially also chase Scheffler. So, So again, with that being said, you want to pay really close attention when we go through these players who repeatedly show up in their strokes gained on their approach play, the 150 to 200 proximity bucket, the 200 plus proximity bucket, but really specifically how these guys play from 175 to 250 with their irons, because that's where that could be Scheffler's kryptonite, right? And somebody could make a run at this thing and try to knock him off. So, all right, the next trend, I think we're on 3 here, distance. So, look, we've already established this from Belle Reve and how this course is going to play, but the leaderboard confirmed it. 7 of the 11 top 10 finishers in 2018 were top 25 in driving distance. So we'll look at these names. Koepka, well, he ain't playing. Peters, he ain't playing. So Koepka was first. Peters was second. Rahm was 7th. Justin Thomas was 10th. Gary Woodland was 11th. So driving distance, absolutely, 100% makes the model. But I don't want to isolate distance, right? Because the rough numbers that we showed are too severe, right? You really want to look at strokes gained off the tee and then alongside the raw distance, because what it's going to tell you is, are you creating an advantage with the driver without constantly putting yourself pretty much in fucking jail, right? So again, you don't just want to isolate the distance, right? And then you want to look at current form, how these guys are performing off the tee. So last 24 rounds leading up to this event, here's your top 10 players in the field in strokes gained off the tee. And then this is in order 1 to 10. Rory, Chris Gotterup, Scottie, Cam Young, Xander, Hideki Matsuyama, Ludwig, Ryan Gerard, Michael Brennan, Gary Woodland. So now we're starting to build these names, and keep in mind these names, you're going to see these names repeat, right? So don't be quick to bet it yet. Just we're building the profile here. But again, Rory, Gotterup, Cam Young, Xander, Ludwig, Brennan, Woodland. Did I miss somebody? Probably. Well, Scheffler's going to check every fucking list. But so those names immediately make sense when you're talking about creating an advantage on a pretty close to 7,500-yard track here. And then the fourth trend, look, how are you hitting your greens? How your greens in regulation, right? Are you hitting enough greens throughout the week to get it done? You need to hit greens, but it's not just hitting greens; it's going to be the proximity. But let's look at in 2018. So 10 of the 11 top 10 finishers in 2018 hit between 52 and 57 greens in regulation. That's somewhere between 72, 79% of greens for the week. But here's the nuance with that. The greens in regulation itself wasn't necessarily the separator here, because a bunch of those contenders, they clustered in the same range. So where you hit the green matters, because these greens are gigantic. Again, 7,500 square feet of greens. You can hit 15 greens, but are you on the wrong side of the ridge? Do you have a 50, 60, 40, 30-foot putt for birdie versus somebody who's got a 5-foot birdie putt, right? So you got to be careful how you use it. And again, we said we can't ignore these 2018 stats, but we can't treat it as gospel either and say this is the scripture, this is the Bible on how to go through this course, because of the changes that they made. So again, greens in regulation matter, but it's the proximity, because look, again, you could be, hey, congratulations, you hit the green, but now it's a 55-foot putt for birdie. So again, that's why we're taking greens in regulation combined with the proximity, the approach play, obviously avoiding any 3 putts, right? So the greens in regulation just basically tells you you're finding the putting surface. What the proximity is telling you is, look, how close you are to the hole and where you're actually giving yourself scoring opportunities versus just, I want to check a box and get on the green. Now, for me, as a fucking amateur golfer, fucking amateur hour, I just want to hit the fucking green, and I'll take my chance on a 60-foot birdie putt. But again, I'm also not playing for millions of dollars here. I'm just going around hacking it up at fucking Muni course. These guys have seasons on the line, tour cards on the line, whatever, lots of shit on the line. They don't want to just get on the green. They want to be creating scoring opportunities, not a 60-foot putt for birdie. So just keep that in mind when, you hear him say, "Oh, he's fucking, I don't know, he hit, 15 out of 18 greens in regulation or whatever." Okay, well, that doesn't really tell you anything because the greens are 7,500 square feet. Where was he? Where was his proximity? Did he give himself scoring opportunities? All right, fifth trend here. Look. When you miss, don't compound the miss. And what I mean by that is you're not going to hit 72 greens. Everybody's going to miss, right? It's going to happen. In 2018, 9 of 11 top 10 finishers were top 20 in scrambling. Koepka was second. Molinari was first. Rahm was second. Tiger was 13th. But there's an interesting wrinkle or a twist to this. Those scrambling numbers didn't always line up with the huge strokes gained around the green numbers. So let me give you an example with Koepka. So Koepka was 44th around the green, second in scrambling. So it's not, I guess what I'm saying is I'm not making that strokes gained around the green one of the heaviest categories when I looked at these players and trends and stats and how a player's game, how their profile fits the course profile. But what I am interested in is bogey avoidance, sand play, scrambling, and not turning a missed green into a fucking double bogey, a triple bogey, a quadruple bogey, or you're cooked, right? So, and then speaking of sand, right? Because again, we said Belle Reve has this unusually high percentage of bunker recoveries. So, strokes gained around the green and sand proximity are really what you want to look at here. It makes the model a little bit broader when you look at this. So here's another opening where somebody could get Scheffler, right? So Scheffler, first in scrambling, 12th in strokes gained around the green. But if you look at some research and some data, has him 55th in sand saves. Again, we already talked about there's one area that could be his kryptonite, the 175 to 250 yard range on the approach play, where somebody like Hovland can definitely challenge in there because that's been pretty much the weakest part of his game all season. This is probably his second weakest part of his game all season. When we look at, again, 12th in strokes gained around the green, right? So he's first in scrambling. He's 12th in strokes gained around the green, but he's 55th in sand saves. And we talked about these bunkers and how they're surrounding these greens. So we're looking for ways that somebody can crack the code to possibly get an advantage here on Scheffler, right? I guess we want to say a crack in Superman's armor. What's the kryptonite here? So there's another kryptonite. We said the 175 to 250 approach play yardage, and now sand saves. He's 55th in sand saves on tour this season. And again, this doesn't mean Scheffler sucks from the bunkers, can't hit it out of a bunker, but these other players who do a lot better with sand saves have an advantage here. So we saw it last week early on in his round. The fucking shit with the shot roll past the hole, rolled right off, I think. So again, 55th in sand saves. That's what you kind of want to look at, and we're kind of giving you guys some angles to identify. And as you're watching, as you're going through live betting, it's going to matter throughout these 4 days here. So that's what you want to look for. You want to look for a challenger to get a good number on somebody. Well, who can make a run at Scheffler, right? I mean, now Scheffler pulled away from the field last week and won up in, 6 strokes? He was, what did I say, he was 15 under. Second place was 9 under. He pulled away a little bit. But again, if it's close on Sunday, you can get a good number on somebody who's maybe a couple strokes back, and you look at how do they fare sand saves? How do they fare in that 175 to 250 proximity bucket, right? If you want to broaden it out a little bit, maybe you go from 150 to 250. But specifically, the sweet spot for Scheffler is the 175 to 250, where it's pretty much been his weakest link all season. So, again, that matters as you're looking for a challenger here. Because, look, if you want to take Scheffler, I think the odds are 3-1, and we'll put up if we get off here. But it's a short number. I mean, if you want to take it, okay, 3-1, that's fine. But, I'd rather take a shot on Hovland maybe on a entering Sunday at like 8-1, 10-1. Because I know Hovland can challenge Scheffler in those spots. Sand saves and that 175 to 250 proximity bucket on the approach play. So it's just another way somebody can steal strokes, fraction of a shot here when you're trying to beat Scheffler, because it's hard to beat the guy. And now I have a feeling he's kind of put that behind him, because the whole talk all season was, when's Scottie going to win? He hasn't won since January, blah, blah, blah. We all said it. We're all critical of it. Oh, my God, he hasn't won. But look, if you look how consistent, though, he's been on tour. Now he's got 2 wins after winning last week. But up until last week, he had 1 win. Didn't matter. His whole game was consistent, week in and week out. He's the most consistent golfer on tour, which is why he should be Player of the Year. And you'll hear a lot of players say the same thing. He's just been flat out consistent. Doesn't have the wins to go with that. Doesn't matter, right? Just consistent and chipping away. Par 4 scoring. Let's talk about that. Again, it's par 70 course. Par 4 scoring, there's 12 par 4s on this course. 6 par 4s are at least 460 yards or more. So you cannot survive or win this tournament if you think you're just going to merely feast on the 2 par 5s that are fucking monsters. You have to survive, and you have to score on par 4s on this course, because you don't have the par 5s to make up the scoring opportunities. All right? So everybody's coming for Scottie, right? The problem is Scheffler leads the tour in par 4 scoring and a par 4 birdie or better percentage. And over the past 3 years, research shows that Scheffler is the best player in this field on par 70 layouts. So Scheffler on par 70 is like fucking money. Now, there are guys that come close. Tommy Fleetwood, Sam Burns. But they're close, but they're still doing a lot of fucking work there to keep it close. So, strokes gained on par 4 scoring, that's another huge trend or category or stat, whatever, in this blueprint that we're building here. So, let's move to the par 3s. That's another possible opening to maybe take a run at Scheffler here. The par 3s, 170, 187, 215, 237. That's not a cupcake set of par 3s. And because Scheffler's long iron performance has been pretty much vanilla, pretty much ordinary by Scheffler's standards, his par 3 scoring has been more than ordinary. Right? So if you're looking at who's possibly somebody who can contend to beat him, they got to outplay him on the par 3s. Right? You're not gaining 3, 4, 5, 6 shots here. You maybe gain 1, maybe 2. Then maybe you gain another fraction from a 200 plus approach shot. Maybe you get 1 from the sand. So that's how you build a case against Scheffler, who's with 3-1 favorite. We said earlier, putting's important, but don't let it fool you. Because in 2018, it gave us a really important warning here. Only one of the 11 top 10 finishers was top 10 in strokes gained putting. So we're not chasing somebody with a hot putter, essentially. If somebody has gained 9 strokes putting for 3 consecutive weeks, but their irons are complete dog shit, that's not my Bell Reeve guy. He's not checking a box. Maybe at another course, but not here. Give me the ball striker, but these are bent grass greens. So we can absolutely use bent grass putting as a tiebreaker for sure, but not just a hot flat stick in general. No, that's not my guy for this course. And if we look specifically at bent grass putting and how guys have fared in 2026 on tour in bent grass putting, here's your list from 1 to 10. Ryan Gerard, Colin Morikawa, Wyndham Clark, Sam Burns, Jake Knapp, Tommy Fleetwood, Victor Hovland, Christopher Rayton, Maverick McNeely, and 10, Scottie Scheffler. So I got 9 guys here on a list who are better bent grass putters this year on tour than Scottie Scheffler. And he made the list, but he's 10th. I guess, his 175 to 250 approach play and his bent grass putting was just average this year. I guess he decided he's just going to be average in those. But, he just fixed it, though, last week, didn't he? Right? So his fairways, bent grass greens, same type of greens, same type of fairways last week. Now, the underlying data says Scheffler is third in strokes gained putting for 2026 on tour. He's second in birdie conversion rate and average distance of putts made, and first in putts made beyond 25 feet. So if somebody's trying to beat Scheffler, look, you're probably going to need to putt your ass off too. But again, going into this, I'm not looking at somebody who's just been great at putting for the last 3 weeks. It's really got to be specific to these bent grass greens. And we talked about 3-putt avoidance. It sounds like fucking common sense. It is. But it matters here, though, because of the size of the greens, because we're talking about 7,500 square feet of greens. If it was, 4,500 square feet, 3-putt avoidance probably wouldn't even be on this fucking list, because I would think, it'd be rare that you have a guy 3-putting. It's possible, right? But again, these larger greens, we said it earlier, it's not just greens and regulations, it's the proximity on these greens. So the 3-putt avoidance, right? It's, I'm not saying whoever wins this, if Scottie wins or Hovland wins or whoever, not going to need to make every 30-foot putt. But if you're consistently staring at a 55-foot putt across a ridge, and that's how your day's turning out putting-wise, well, you're pretty much gone. So this course can technically turn it can turn a successful approach into a bogey opportunity if you're hitting the wrong section of the green, right? So it's all going to matter where you are on the green, not just hitting the green. So if you're watching or listening on the radio on SiriusXM or whoever the fuck has it, and they're giving you just a number of greens in regulation, well, that's not enough. You need to know where their proximity is. Because if they're consistently hitting 25, 30, 40-foot putts for birdie, and that's their scoring opportunity, well, yeah, all right, fucking, the sun shines on a dog's ass every now and then, but they might make a couple. But if you ask them to do that all day long or for 4 days, it's not going to cut it, right? We also talk about birdie or better and the bogey avoidance. So I want both sides of scoring, birdie or better on long courses, and then the bogey avoidance also on long courses. Well, why do you want both? Well, here's why I look at it, or why I want both. Because this isn't necessarily a U.S. Open at Oakmont or Shinnecock. If the conditions are going to remain receptive, like they've been, because they're a little moist, because they're above the seasonal average for rainfall, almost 4 inches of rain this month. They're going to get birdies with these receptive greens, no doubt. Koepka he won it at 16 under in 2018. Gary Woodland, first 2 rounds, 64 and a 63 to start. Tiger shot 64 on Sunday. But it's also not a fucking putting contest either. You're going to face long approaches. We talked about water, the fescue, fairway bunkers, the bunkers around the green, the long par fours. So when I looked at this to try to handicap the course, I want somebody who can create birdies when they're available without bleeding bogeys when Belle Reve pushes back and tries to defend itself. So let's go through everything, the trends that we just went through, and give you the blueprint and put everything together. So here's the whole fucking thing put together. So tier 1, we have the foundation here. Strokes gained, tee to green. We said that's going to be the heaviest weighted, or at least that's how I handicapped this thing looking at this. And I'm sure others did too. A couple other golf shows that I saw either on Golf Channel or podcasts, they're kind of same. Some orders different, but similar categories, right? So when I looked at this, strokes gained, tee to green. And then I have strokes gained on the approach play. Then I have driving and strokes gained off the tee. Driving distance, that's the tier 1. Now, tier 2, this is where the approaches are going to matter here. And we talked about those proximity buckets and where somebody could potentially have an edge over Scheffler. Again, 150 to 200 and 200 plus. But there's that little extra emphasis on the 175 to 250. And that's pretty much been Scheffler's weakest part of his game all season. And the 55th and sand saves, which is going to matter because there's a lot of bunkers around these greens, so he's got to be careful. So we also talked about strokes gained on par 4 on the par 4s. We said par 4 scoring is a must. You got to create opportunities on these par 4s because you only have 2 par 5s and they're fucking monsters. And depending, we said on 17, where the tee box is placed, it could either be 550 to 624. So we said birdie or better percentage I care about on long courses, as well as bogey avoidance on these long courses. And this is one of the longer courses. Again, 74-48 is a yardage. So that was the tier 3 was the scoring here. The strokes gained on the par 4s, the birdie or better percentage on these long courses, bogey avoidance on long courses. And now we move into tier 4 here. Basically, don't give up your opportunities, right? We talked about greens and regulation, but the proximity to the green, or the proximity to the hole once you're on the green. There's different tiers, there's ridges. So just because you're on the green doesn't mean you created a scoring opportunity for yourself. And that's where the 3-putt avoidance comes into play with these 7,500 square feet of greens. And also your scrambling around the hole is going to matter. So we talked about sand saves as well. The proximity to the sand, your sand saves. Scheffler's 55th in those. Again, that's probably his second worst. If he has 2 kryptonites, it's that 175 to 250 proximity approach on his approach shots and the 55th in sand saves. Those are probably the 2 biggest areas of concern for Scheffler this year. Not that, I mean, still Scottie Scheffler. Doesn't mean he can't hit his bunker shot. But again, this is an area where guys could potentially gain a stroke on Scheffler and try to make a run at knocking him off here. And then we also looked at tiebreakers, right? So, again, it's not just the distance. It's also, so looking at your driving, right? It's not just driving distance. It's also your accuracy, right? Because, yeah, you want to have distance. Because again, there's fairway bunkers. They moved those 280 to 320. They moved them down range. But it's distance, but it's also accuracy. Because if you're hitting your approach shot from the rough, you have a roughly 42% chance of hitting the green versus hitting it from the fairway. It's like 79, 80%. And then we talked about strokes gained, specifically putting on bent grass, and who are some of those guys that check those boxes. Now, we gave you the 1 through 10 list, and we said Scheffler was number 10, right? So there's 9 other people this year statistically, just on bent grass greens, are statistically better than Scheffler. Ryan Gerard, Colin Morikawa, Wyndham Clark, Sam Burns, Jake Knapp, Tommy Fleetwood, Victor Hovland, Christopher Rayton, Maverick McNeely, and then Scheffler rounds out the top 10. So just keep that in mind as well. When you're looking at putting, it's not just this guy's been hot, think he found his putter. Well, maybe, but maybe he sucks on bent grass surfaces, right? And then we also talk about, just again, 2018 numbers and data. It's more as a guide and not to, just use it with a grain of salt when we went through that. It's not really, because again, the brand new greens, course is longer, but again, take that for what it's worth. And then we also talked, comp courses matter here. So let's kind of go through, before I go through the comp courses, let's kind of just look at a couple reference points. Now, remember, 2008, the BMW Championship was here. 2018, the PGA Championship was here. So I didn't go back to 2008. You can if you want. There's sites out there you can get all the 2008 data you want on the BMW Championship, but everything I kind of compared was 2018 and weighted more, right? Because just in general, the 2008 setup, the course was like 200 yards shorter. 2008, look, if you look at from 2008 to 2018, the game changed so much. And even from 2018 to now, the game has changed a lot. But 2008, that's fucking almost 20 years ago. So who cares? For me, it had no weight in handicapping this at all. So if we look at 2018, going back to 2008 real quick, the stats from that tournament nearly 20 years ago, the stats were leaning heavy toward accuracy. Now, 2018 pretty much said it's all power. Bomb and gouge, long irons, elite tee to green players. Now, we said since 2018, they removed a bunch of trees, made the course longer, and just this new style of golf, the way the game has evolved with these guys are just more aggressive. So I didn't look at anything from 2008 to have any weight on when I went through to handicap this at all. Because if I did, this would be a fucking Zach Johnson golf course. But 2008 just threw it out the window. But again, some of this stuff from 2018 is relevant. It matters. But again, not using it as gospel to completely weigh it heavily enough to have an impact. It's just more like a guide. Like, okay, well, what did they do here 8 years ago? And if you look at this field of 50 guys teeing it up this weekend, only 17 players from this week's field played in the 2018 PGA Championship. So who gives a shit? Again, it matters, but it doesn't. So, and some of those names still deserve attention who were there. Adam Scott, he finished third. Gary Woodland was top 10. He led after 36 holes, actually. And Ricky Fowler tied 12th. So there's some notables from 2018. And again, we said the course history, just 8 years, 8 years later, isn't really enough by itself. It's another box to check, sure. How did these 17 players who are playing this week, how did they play in 2018? Box to check. But again, the current form coming into this event matters more, the way I handicap this, than how they played in 2018. So let's get into the comp courses because, look, we don't have, it's not an annual stop on tour, so we don't have annual data to pull up on this course, but there are still some similarities at some other courses. There are some courses that kind of fit within the same family as Belle Reve. So a couple of these, again, not exact copies of this. I mean, this course is kind of its own fucking area code, its own zip code, so to speak. But big championship venues, strong fields, a lot of guys ripping driver, long par fours, high leverage on these mid to long iron shots, sorry. And generally it's a premium on tee to green play. So when you look at that and these, similar courses or somewhat similar that have had bigger events, Torrey Pines South, one that comes to mind, Valhalla, even Wilmington Country Club in the BMW Championship was there. When was that? 2023? I should know. I was fucking there. But Aronimink, when guys were just there a couple months ago. Caves Valley. Olympia Fields is another one. TPC Craig Ranch. Now, the scoring profile a little bit different than TPC Craig Ranch. That's the main caveat there. But those courses that we just mentioned, so these are bigger tracks or bigger ballparks, so to speak. They all have long par fours, long par threes. Guys ripping driver a ton at those courses. And the second shots here on these par fives are going to be from long range on those similar courses. And then the courses where you're able to hit high quality approach shots from 175 plus. It's not a bonus. It's really part of the job description here because we said that's the sweet spot, 175 to 250. And we'll again go back to 2018, this leaderboard. Koepka, Tiger, Adam Scott, John Rahm, Justin Thomas, Gary Woodland, Thomas Peters. Like, these weren't just a bunch of guys just plotting around 275 off the tee and wedging everything. These were elite ball strikers, bombers, long iron players. And this is where, again, because we don't have annual data from Belle Reve. That's why we have those other courses that we said are similar, because they're larger championship type setups. And that's what we used to handicap that as far as a comparable course, or a course that is an annual stop on tour. So there's another angle here that I don't want to confuse with course history. I want to look specifically at BMW Championship history, because, again, the BMW Championship is at different courses every year. Now, they've gone back to courses that they've played at, but you're not playing the same course back-to-back years. So it does move around a little bit. And so this isn't, look, Patrick Cantlay loves this exact course. It's more that, say, Patrick Cantlay has repeatedly performed well in this kind of playoff environment. That's kind of the angle I'm looking at here, and specifically a BMW Championship tournament. Who's played well statistically at these BMW Championship events? I mean, it's worth something, right? Because these, again, you're getting the top 50 guys in the FedEx Cup, so a stronger field. It's a championship style field setup, strong and small field. There's no cut, heavy pressure. And usually the track that they're playing at that week is pretty demanding. So let's look at the best BMW performers since 2020. And some of the names that stood out as typically doing well in BMW championships: Robert McIntyre, Ludwig, Sam Burns, Scottie, of course, Rory, Tommy Fleetwood, Patrick Cantlay, Adam Scott, Ben Griffin, Ricky Fowler. Again, if somebody fits. So again, I wouldn't just, I don't know. I'll take Rory because I can't stand the fucking guy, and I would never bet the guy. But look, his game's complete dog shit. The guy's played 11 events this season. You saw it last week. It looks like shit. He ain't finding his fucking game. He's going to get cooked again this week, and get cooked again next week. So. But let's just take Rory, for example. If you were like, oh, Rory has done so well at BMW championships, I wouldn't just blindly bet, and again, that's just me, but I wouldn't blindly bet Rory just because he has a history doing well at just BMW championships. It's something to look at, right? Kind of checks another box, but it doesn't move the needle for me one way or the other to say, yeah, I'm taking this guy because, I don't know, he's won 2 out of the last 10 BMW championships. I don't really care because they move around. But when you talk about smaller field, a stronger field, no cut, more pressure, that matters. But again, it's not just a single reason for me to either say yes or no to the bet. I mean, let's take a look at Patrick Cantlay. His BMW championship history is absolutely fucking ridiculous. And it's pretty much the cleanest example I could find. He won at Caves Valley, won at Wilmington, second at Medina, and then added solid finishes in subsequent BMW championships. So, if you like Cantlay's current irons, if you like the bent grass, if you like the course fit, the event history for BMW championships is supporting evidence, right? So if Cantlay's checking 4 other boxes, and then you're like, well, he's done incredible in BMW championships. Okay, well, maybe you use that as a tiebreaker, maybe. But again, it's not just one reason to support the guy or not. So here's the way, like I said, I use it. Like I don't want, well, Cantlay won at Caves Valley, so he's going to win at Belle Reve. That's just a fucking lazy take. What I want, and the whole idea, so the betting guide I do for myself. So why not give it to you guys? This is how I handicap the course. So whatever. But this is where I get my information from, and how when I post my card, the same thing. If I went through this and then posted completely different names later tonight or tomorrow, well, then I'd be a fucking retard, right? So I'm like doing double work. The names that you're going to see that now, of course, I'll take a flyer on some long shots, but, the same names that I'm going to post on my card tomorrow is going to be the same shit that we're talking about. So, again, Cantlay as the example, if I'm like, oh, well, he won at Caves Valley or he won at Wilmington, then I'm just going to say, well, he's going to win here. Again, it's a lazy take, but what I want when I'm handicapping this, does he fit Belle Reve? Is his current form there? Does his long iron profile fit? Can he handle bent grass putting? I don't know, does he have enough off the tee? Has he, in similar BMW championship setups, how has he performed? And then if I'm checking more boxes than not, well, then starts piquing my interest a little bit more. So let's look at first round leader angles. And again, just be careful with this. And, last week we said at TPC Southwind, we had a little bit better angle on these first round leaders historically at that course over the last 5-6 years. And it almost paid off. It was right there. Just the guy put his fucking Harris English decided he's going to put his ball in the water on 18 and double bogey and then just take himself out of it. But again, that's TPC Southwind, and we said lots of water balls. So we had a better angle, more data, course history. We had the weather factor in, the morning wave setup, how that was. Spieth fitted. He teed off early 9:10, 9:15. But with Belle Reve right now, we don't have that same wave edge as far as the tee time. Now, again, we did say weather-wise, less wind should be more favorable. Again, based on these weather reports, should be favorable scoring conditions in the morning versus afternoon because the winds will pick up. But nothing's like, if you're not out by 9:30, 10 o'clock, well, you're fucked for the rest of the day, right? So the way I looked at it this week, first round leader for me this week is more about the player profile, round one scoring upside, and maybe use tee time as a tiebreaker. So what do I look for in a first round leader? A guy who can historically go low without needing his fucking putter to go nuclear to get him to go low. Because, again, going back to 2018, the leaderboard was so tee to green dominant. Again, be careful with the 2018 stuff. Again, it's just a reference. And then second, I'm looking for somebody with distance. And then third, a guy who can give himself a birdie opportunity from his approach play, specifically in that 175 to 250 proximity bucket of where these approach shots are coming from. And then fourth, who can handle long par fours? And the fifth one would be a guy who maybe has a little volatility, right? Because, again, it's not really looking at, well, who's for a first round leader. You're not sitting there thinking, well, let me find a guy who's likely to finish 18th, right? It has to be somebody who's maybe a little bit volatile, right? It's like Jordan Spieth fit that fucking profile last week. So basically, I need somebody who's capable of shooting, 62, 63, 64, maybe lower if the greens stay soft or softer than what we think. And look, we said it. Gary Woodland was 64, 63, the PGA Championship in 2018. And Koepka fired off a 63 on Friday. So the low numbers absolutely will come into play here. And ball striking will get hot. You're going to see guys go low. And as far as the tee time, again, better angle last week in Memphis with the FedEx St. Jude Championship. Not too much here, but to me, the tee time is really just a tiebreaker. Like if I had two guys who, I don't know, checked 4 out of 7 boxes or however many trends we just went through. If one guy has a later tee time versus an early morning, I'd favor the early morning just because with weather, it should be virtually no wind. The threat of thunderstorms is very low. So no wind, threat of storms low. But more importantly, the course ain't all chewed the fuck up. Greens aren't stomped on, right? It's fucking guys stomp around the fucking greens. Fairways don't have fucking divots all over, right? So again, it's more of an advantage to go out early than a little bit later. So again, I use that as a tiebreaker. And really, it's like we said last week, we had more of a wave angle with these tee times for the first round leader. We don't have that. It gives a little bit of an edge here, but it's not really anything concrete, at least the way I looked at it. So as far as first round leader, what I'm trying to decide is, I'm going through this and finalizing my card, is how they're playing coming into this. What is their actual tee time? What's their birdie rate? How's their long iron play? How are they off the tee? What's their ability coming off the tee? And obviously, what's the fucking market price from the book? Shop the lines. Make sure you're getting the best number. I mean, it'll be relatively close, but again, how much juice you laying to take that? You shouldn't be laying any fucking juice for first round leader. It should all be fucking plus money. But again, what's the better number? Right. So here's where it kind of gets a little fun. We'll kind of go through some of these players and odds, because we went through the course profile. We kind of went back to 2018, looked at weather, some stats, some trends, checked boxes. How many guys' name shows up on those lists we went through. How they do maybe at other BMW championships. It kind of means something, but doesn't, right? So let's start with Scottie. So really, we talked about every category. We talked about Scheffler showed up in every single one. Tee to green numbers, how he's doing off the tee, his approach play. Even though his bent grass putting was 10th, he still cracked the list. BMW history. So Scheffler fit it? Hell yeah, he fits it. It's not the question, right? The question is, can we beat the price that if you want to take Scheffler, right? So that's really what it comes down to with Scheffler. Or he gets off to a slow start, and then you get a better number after his first round going into Friday, right? So that's another thing too to be mindful of. I'm looking here. Who else? Sam Burns. Let's get to Sam Burns. So Sam Burns, and I really thought Sam Burns was going to win last week. I mean, he's got to win at some point, right? I mean, dude just keeps fucking showing up. I mean, he's got to get one of these. It just feels like he's got to get one sooner or later. But again, guy keeps showing up. So let's look at his stats. Recent strokes gained total, second. Recent tee to green, he's fourth on tour. His recent form on his approach play, first. Bent grass putting, fourth. And his BMW performance since 2020, third. I mean, that's a monster profile. Look at Sam Burns. Let me go again. Recent strokes gained total, ranked second. Recent tee to green numbers, he's fourth. His approach play numbers on his recent form coming in, it's usually like the past 24 events, I think is what I looked at. So he's first. Bent grass putting, he's fourth. And his BMW Championship performance since 2020 ranks third. That's huge. It's almost like deja vu, because last week it was like a clear fit, and he was right there. It's just you're playing Scheffler. You can't make mistakes. And even when Scheffler was making mistakes, nobody could fucking close the door to get it closer. He ended up pulling away. Yeah, look, Sam Burns, his irons were absolutely dialed in last week. I mean, you look at his transcript and how he played. Approach play highlighted all over the place. The last several weeks coming into this. Not just last week, but his transcript, how he's played the past several weeks. Approach play is phenomenal. Putting, great. A little shaky with the driver last week in Memphis, but a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more room to maneuver, a little bit wider fairways, maybe gets a little bit more aggressive. If he's a little errant on his tee shot, maybe he's still in the fairway, just maybe not the lie he was hoping for, but he might still be in the fairway. So again, checks a lot of boxes, Sam Burns. current form, approach play, putting, BMW history, his performance on par 70 tracks. Look, he shows up in big events. It's a clean profile fit. And then let's talk about Hideki. Look, his strength gained total. He's third. Tee to green, he's second. Off the tee numbers, he's sixth. These are all recent within the last 24 rounds. Approach play, he's ninth. So, look, talk about ball striking first. Hideki is right in the fucking middle of the conversation. Here's the concern. His workload. So entering this week, this would be his 7th consecutive week playing. In this heat, brutal heat last week, brutal heat this week. How's his workload? I mean, sounds dumb, but you saw the guys last week. I mean, trying to stay hydrated, stay cool. I mean, it's just physically taxing. Skill fit is excellent. It's the fatigue. Is that real? 7 straight weeks. Most of these guys play a couple weeks, take a week off, come back. Let's talk a little bit more about Viktor Hovland. Talked about him earlier when we said, look, if somebody's going to potentially get Scheffler or gain a stroke or maybe 2 strokes, it's that long iron play, specifically the 175 to 250 proximity bucket. We know Hovland can absolutely challenge Scheffler there. Go back to the Travelers Championship when he won in a playoff. He didn't buckle. Fucking went out there and was like, fuck it, I'm getting it done. Sealed the deal. Won it. That's huge for Hovland. That's a huge confidence boost for him. So his recent total, top 10. Tee to green, top 10. Approach play, top 5. Bent grass putting, top 10. He's done well historically, too, at these BMW events. Won at Olympia Fields, top 10 finish last year. So, this is where I care about the trajectory, too. Like he had an ugly week last week at Memphis. However, look at his transcript notes. He actually drove it well Thursday and Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday just fell apart. So not automatically throwing Hovland out because he finished bad last week. This could be a better fit for him. Look, if his irons stay where they're at and he doesn't regress with his iron play, Viktor Hovland could absolutely win this. Let's talk about Tommy Fleetwood. Recent total. His number is 4th. Tee to green, he's 5th. Bent putting, he's 6th. And again, historically at BMW events, he's one of the better performers over the past few years. So, and a lot of this data that I found, the data specifically identified Fleetwood and Burns as among players who come closest to Scottie on par 70 courses and how they perform there. So, again, look, what does Fleetwood give you? Great tee to green numbers. Was great on par 70 scoring. Good on bent putting. Historically does well at BMW events. And look at the recency bias and how Tommy Fleetwood's played of late. Matt Fitzpatrick, he's another one. Recent total 6th, tee to green 9th, approach 7th. Look, Belle Reve is screaming approach, approach, approach. So if Fitzpatrick's irons are at a career best level, I mean, this is the best, his numbers this year, the best approach play season of his career. This course is screaming approach, approach, approach. So if his iron's at a career best level, damn right that matters. So, the only thing here with Fitzpatrick is, does he give up too much distance to these guys who can really bomb it? Tom Kim, 5th tee to green, 6th on approach, 2nd from an iron standpoint, his iron play, so he fits. Same thing with, we talked about it with a couple other guys. Does Tom Kim have enough off the tee? Now, we're not saying, look, he's got to be Bryson here. But the 2018, that leaderboard, lean, this power heavy lean. So, Tom Kim, great iron player, strong approach fit with a question mark at the distance. Siwoo Kim, recent total 8th, tee to green 3rd, approach play 3rd. And you look at his transcript coming into this, he's basically a tee to green monster. Look, Siwoo Kim, here are his recent strokes gained, tee to green. 6.2, 5.5, 5.7, 8.8. That's some serious fucking numbers for Siwoo Kim. You say, what's the problem? It's putter. Right? But that's the beauty of this course, though. You actually may be able to survive if your putting's right around that Mendoza line, as long as you're flushing your other shots. So this is what makes Siwoo Kim interesting, specifically because it might allow him to use his strongest skill to do most of the work here. You knew we were going to talk about Patrick Cantlay. But, you know, here he doesn't check as many boxes as other players. However, his recent approach play, it's been very, very good. It's very strong recently for him. Historically for Patrick Cantlay, his best putting surface is bent grass. We talked earlier about he's been fucking money at these BMW events. 2 wins and a second and multiple other solid finishes if you look back from 2020. So, again, Cantlay is exactly why, you know, you don't just look at the check marks or asterisk or however you're grading these guys and say, forget it, these, you know, he doesn't have enough boxes checked. You know, you have to look, you know, recency bias, BMW history, right? So that's where you dig a little bit deeper. Because even though Cantlay's not high on my list, he's on my list. Let's get to Colin Morikawa. I am done betting Colin Morikawa. Every time, I wanted him to do well last week. I really thought, I just swear, every time I bet Colin Morikawa, it's like I'm fucking bad juju and the guy just shits the bed. And what did he do? I don't know what the fuck he finished. It wasn't in the top 20 that I had him. I think I have him top 10 and 20. It didn't cash on and give a fuck where he finished. It just seems like every time I bet him, he does so bad. When I don't bet him, he does well. But, look, his recent approach play, numbers have him ranked 10th. He's second in the field in bent grass putting. So you take that combo, iron play, bent putting. That's pretty attractive, the way this course comes at you. Here's the concern with Colin Morikawa. It's really his raw distance. Does he create enough off the tee on a super long course, one of the longest courses they're going to play all season? But take that out, you know, take his raw distance out of it. I mean, you can't ignore him. I am, but you really can't. Who else do I have on my list? Wyndham Clark. His recent total, 7th. Bent grass putting numbers have him ranked 3rd. And do we even have to question, is the distance there with Wyndham Clark? Here's the question with Wyndham Clark. Are his irons good enough? Right? Let's keep going back to the same thing. you're not winning this tournament just by hitting your driver on average like 330, 340. It's got to be iron play. But that's been the question mark, Wyndham Clark. Right? Are the irons good enough? I don't know. It's worth a flyer, though. Rory, I told you. I mean, I can give you a case for Rory. He's first in recent strokes gained off the tee. Recent BMW performances done well. So, from just a simple who can overpower this place standpoint, Rory's got to be on the list. But after fucking last week, his recent form, recency bias, I'm not buying it. He looks like dog shit. So the form question and how he's playing is real. So the numbers aren't the same as what the eye test gives you with Rory. Jake Knapp is an interesting one. His approach play, he's top 10, bent putting, top 5. And we know with Jake Knapp, distance is not a problem. So what becomes interesting if you're looking at a guy like Jake Knapp, he checks several of these boxes that we went through. But, he doesn't carry the elite player name. This event here at Bellerive, without carrying the elite player names, it means his price can matter here if you're trying to shop it and take a flyer on Jake Knapp. Xander, it's actually a better fit than it looks with Xander. He didn't consistently show up in these categories we went through, but, this is where you kind of look at the guy's qualitative profile. I mean, his driver been pretty damn good all year. He's gained off the tee and off the approach in each of his last 3 events. And the putter, over the past couple starts, he's gotten better with the putter. Now let's look at his BMW history for Xander. Top 3 top 10s in his last 4 starts in the BMW Championship. So Schauffele's profile is really power, ball striking, his BMW history. And he's damn good on bent grass greens. So Kurt Kitayama, it's more of a long shot. Strong iron play. Gained more than a stroke in 5 of his last 6 events. Driver, he's gained in 5 of the last 7. And lately, doing better on bent putting. So, this is where prices, when you get to these long shots, the prices start getting interesting. You're not paying Scottie money. You're getting power, irons, form. And some of these guys a little bit down the betting board. Here's another one I had on here. Ricky Fowler. Now, I had Fowler top 20. I might have had him for a top 10 too. I don't know. Fowler, I thought was going to do a lot better than he did last week. But if you look at his numbers, though, this is another. I can tell you right now, Sam Bird's going to be on the card. Fowler's going to be on the card. Cantley is on my list here that I'm staring at and trying to. It's just got fucking arrows all over. Between leaders and placement finishes is fucking. But Cantley's on there. But I can tell you, Burns and Fowler will be on, and Gary Woodland will be on there. But as far as what I'm doing with Fowler, I don't know yet. But not so good of a week last week. Didn't bring home the placement finish. But if you look at his numbers, 5 of Fowler's last 6 events, he's gained off the tee. 4 straight events, he's gained off his approach play. He's been putting well, believe it or not. His kryptonite's been his short game. But, again, going back to 2018, what that told us is if you hit enough greens, you can hide some of the around the green issues, right? So, I don't know. Maybe he can kind of mask his short game play. Maybe he found his short game. I don't know. We'll find out tomorrow, though. And his BMW history, and he actually has Belle Reve history. He was tied for 12th in 2018 at the PGA Championship. So again, if I'm taking Fowler, it's going to be dependent upon price. So I got to shop some of these lines and see where I'm at when we're done here, and then I'll post everything. But he's going to be on my plays that I just don't know where. Michael Brennan. Obviously one of the last guys into the field, but Michael Brennan's not here by accident. So his recent total is so tee to green and off the tee, and done well, but like his putter struggled in Memphis really bad. But before that, 3 straight events, gaining more than 4.5 shots in his approach play. Putting's gotten better. His distance is obvious, right? So it's kind of like, you forgive the one bad course fit and look at the larger trend. Still works there. So you kind of look at last week as an outlier and kind of say forget about it. Gary Woodland. This is a fun one. I always like Gary Woodland. I thought he played well last week. He didn't cash the bet we had for placement finish either, but he was top 10 at Belle Reve in 2018, led after 36 holes. He's an elite driver. So, again, it's really, I guess what I'm looking for is a little bit deeper number with an actual Belle Reve receipt, like how he's played here. But definitely Gary Woodland deserves the look, and he'll probably be somewhere as a placement pick for me. Let's talk about Alex Fitzpatrick here. Look, his recent results don't really jump out at you, right? If you look at it recently, how he's played, kind of started off hot and kind of dipped. But underlying his tee to green performance, it's been much better. So his biggest angle here is putting surface, right? Weaker recent putting came on surfaces that it didn't really fit him too well. So, like the Canadian, the RBC Canadian and Memorial, where there's bent grass, fit him a little bit better. And his tee to green profile since the Memorial has been pretty damn strong. So, so I feel like with Alex Fitzpatrick, it's like the classic. This looks bad. However, the underlying numbers suggest otherwise. Makes it look a little bit better. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see, I guess. So, all right. So I kind of broke this down. Of the categories we went through as we're building out this blueprint, how I did it then to come up with these guys, or who could potentially make the final cut list and then get on the card. So there was what I said was like elite complete fits, which would be Scheffler, Burns, Fleetwood, Hovland, Hideki. The question with Hideki really is his workload and is a fatigue real. The tier 2 people: Matt Fitzpatrick, Tom Kim, Siwoo Kim, Cantlay Morikawa, not for me, Xander. And then some upside fits that would need a slightly better price. Rory, I never take Rory, but you can take him. Wyndham, Kitayama, and Jake Knapp. And also Fowler and Brennan. Now, we start going a little deeper, but the course history angle, if you want to play that angle, Alex Fitzpatrick and Gary Woodland for sure. So, again, this is it's really dependent upon what kind of number I'm going to get when I sit down shortly to finalize this. Just looking at some of these odds. Let me see. I have a couple here. All right, let me give you a quick recap of this blueprint, and then I have a couple odds pulled up, and then we'll get the fuck out of here. So really, like 60-second recap of what we went through. So basically, here's the entire handicap in like a minute. So going to be long. Course is long, so they got to be able to play long as well. 74-48 is the yardage of par 70. There's only 2 par 5s, 6 par 4s, 2 long par 3s, and power is going to matter here. But we said power without control is where you're going to get punished. We're going to get punished and penalized here. Look, got to hit the fairway. If you're in the rough, you're in the shit. Your percentage goes from 79% greens in regulation from the fairway versus 42% from the rough. Long irons. The sweet spot is the proximity bucket of 175 to 250. Par 4 scoring. Greens in regulation, but not just isolating that, it's also the proximity. So where you're hitting the greens, not just hitting the green. Bent grass putting, how are you doing there? Sand saves, lots of bunkers on fairway and also around the green. Got to avoid water. I believe I said there's 6 holes of water. And the closing stretch, 15, 16, 17, 18 is going to be, it's going to be tough, which could really flip this tournament. I don't know. I think we're going to see a lot of shit go down on 15, 16, 17, 18. Just because how it's laid out. It's a tough stretch to finish. And look, stay at like the fucking Mendoza line for putting, essentially. You don't need to be on a heater with your putter. Just land the opportunities that you're given, right? So, again, ball striking, distance, approach, controlled, and like I said, be at that Mendoza line for putting. So, let's look at a couple odds here. And some of the names who kept showing up on these lists. Then I'll give you some odds. Sam Burns, Victor Hovland. All right. So I'll give you why they kept showing up. Burns, elite recent approach. The eye test, his recency bias, his form, strong putting, and he just checked multiple fucking boxes. Victor Hovland, elite approach play. His BMW history solid. More room off the tee is going to help Hovland here. Cam Young, look, his driver keeps moving, keeps working. Irons have been strong. Putter is the swing factor here with Cam Young. Ludwig, look, he's got the complete skill set, distance, accuracy. It's a kind of, because he has the kind of off the tee profile that this course rewards. The question is, he hasn't been able to slam the door and finish. I don't trust him, but his game fits. It's a hell of a fit. Wyndham Clark, a little bit longer of a fit, but he fits. Power, better approach form recently, and the wider Zoysia fairways do help Wyndham Clark here. Jake Knapp, look, he's a fucking bomber, but he's also good with his long irons. Gary Woodland, his Belle Reve history. Look, he's fired off 63 and 64 and was your leader both those rounds when he played the PGA Championship in 2018. And he's long. Alex Fitzpatrick, he's more of a long shot, but again, we look at the comparable courses, how he's done there, and his approach and off the tee number is strong recently, or stronger recently, I should say. Chris Gotterup, look, again, bomber. So driver heavy profile for Gotterup. Upside here is a big course. Won't be a problem for him to move around. And then we said Hideki, look, he's a fucking top 10 machine. It's almost like automatic cashing that ticket with Hideki. Total strokes gained, And he's in my opinion, he's definitely a better fit here than he was in Memphis. So, all right. So some of these odds: Cam Young is 22-1, Hovland 30-1, Sam Burns 20-1, Rory 16-1. I would not be betting Rory. Chris Goddard up 28-1, Ludwig 18-1. We said a couple of sleepers, maybe some long shots, dark horses, whatever you want to call it. Wyndham 30-1, Justin Rose, that motherfucker, 70-1. What's interesting with Justin Rose here, he closed last week in Memphis with 6.3 strokes gained ball striking. But the volatility with Justin Rose, it's fucking real. I can't take it. Alex Fitzpatrick, 100-1. Alex Fitzpatrick is more tied to the comp course profile. Tied for sixth at Memorial, 54-hole leader at Quail Hollow, top 11 in the field off the tee, and his approach play over the last 30 rounds. So it's a legit deep value because his profile fits the angle here. And then Sunjay M 70-1. Look, he's been pretty damn hot this month. His best week of iron play came last week, that's for sure. Does have a hot putter, but even if his putting was average right now, I'd still say he's right there. But again, 70-1. I might take a flyer on him. Jake Knapp, 40-1. We already gave you the fucking profile on Jake Knapp. Here's some angles that may or may not get a look at first round leader that I had marked down. Gary Woodland is 40-1 first round leader. It's kind of a fun pick. I mean, his distance and accuracy combo is really good. He has an early tee time. He's top 10 in first round scoring average. He was first round leader the last time at Belle Reve for the 2018 PGA Championship. Definitely worth a mention with Gary Woodland, which is why he's on my final list of names here to fire off. First round leader for Ludwig. If I would do anything with Ludwig, it would be first round leader. I would not take him to win outright because he just can't finish. But he fits, it's strong course fit for sure. And if you look historically, Ludwig starts fast and just can't finish. And just go back and look at the data. So, 20-1 first round leader. It's a better shot than outright because, again, his track record shows he starts hot and tails off. Another one is Scottie as your leader after 54 holes plus 400. A couple matchup plays that kind of, I guess, reinforce the blueprint or the guide or the model that we just went through. Kurt Kitayama over Ryan Gerard. Carry distance, and the long iron advantage goes to Kitayama here. Jake Knapp over Cantlay. Now, you might say, well, Cantlay's history on BMW, but power. So Knapp's power and off the tee numbers are, in my mind, are weighted better than just the history of the BMW Championship with Cantlay. Burns over Rory by a fucking mile. Sam Burns. I mean, look, Rory just looks like dog shit. I wouldn't bet Rory anyway. Siwoo Kim over Matt Fitzpatrick. Again, it's close, but Siwoo has the advantage in that 175 to 200, 250 range, that proximity bucket. Hovland over Cantlay. Look, Hovland's just better recently than Cantlay. Top 10, Thor Bjornsson is like 3.5-1. Hideki 190 plus 195. Wyndham plus 230. Gary Woodland plus 400. Minimum league plus 380. Xander plus 150. Now, again, final card will be posted on X at OTH Sports Pod, and our Pikkit page at Off the Hook is the handle on Pikkit. So here's because we said 20 guys are going home, right? So there's going to be seasons ending on Sunday. We have 50 players going into it, 30 are moving on to East Lake, 20 packing their bags for the season. There's some pretty big names. So I'll kind of go through some of these scenarios and how it plays out real quick. So Justin Thomas, he is 44th right now. So when you look at what does he need to do here, well, pretty fucking simple. He needs a solo 7th. Realistically, top 5 would make it a lot more comfortable than a 7th. Problem is Justin Thomas only has 2 top 10 finishes all year. So now, when he basically needs one, he has to produce one of the best weeks that he's produced. Weeks, not round. One of the best weeks he's produced all season in a fucking pressure cooker environment. I mean, it was also interesting with JT. He lost more than 3 strokes in both major ball striking categories last week in Memphis. So, again, now you got to turn around and play probably one of the top 3, 4, or 5 rounds you played all season, and not just rounds, complete tournament. It's just, I don't know. Patrick Cantlay, 1 notch up at 43rd. He needs a solo 7th or better. Now, former FedEx Cup champion, last year's runner-up. I mean, he is in real danger of missing East Lake altogether. But Cantlay gets a little interesting because the profile that we talked about with Cantlay actually gives him a chance. Approach play has been excellent. Bent grass, historically, he does very well. It's actually, bent grass surfaces are historically his best surface to putt on. And we already said it multiple times. The BMW Championship history is just fucking ridiculous. So, and it's not really, for Cantlay, it's pretty easy. It's not square peg, round hole with him. He's a pretty easy fit, what you've been looking for. He just has to convert. Gary Woodland's another interesting one. He's sitting at 31st. So, again, literally 1 spot from the top 30. But, unlike JT and Cantlay, he doesn't need to go win the thing. So, minimum finish for Gary Woodland would be a solo 48th in a 50-player field. That minimum finish moves him on to East Lake. So, Gary Woodland basically has to avoid a complete fucking implosion or a disaster and then just watch what happens around him. Right? Fowler, he's at 30. Like, if Woodland beats Fowler, he's got a realistic chance to advance. You know, top 10% off the tee. Good history here at this course. Top 6 here in 2018. Led after 36 holes. Man, he was the first round leader after the last time they played here. That's for Gary Woodland. Sorry. So, again, Woodland, I like Woodland over Fowler. I think Woodland gets in over Fowler. But again, Fowler's been rough. Short game. around the green's been rough. Can he do enough to mask that? I don't know. I'd rather take my chances with Woodland. And Bobby Mack, I mean, he's sitting at 36. He needs at least a three-way tie for 15th, but there's a much bigger issue with McIntyre. It's his knee, right? He shot an 82 Thursday in Memphis and fucking said, I'm out of here. Now, according to the report that I got, he has a cyst on one of his knees, apparently. Had an MRI, what I saw. And he's undergoing treatment, but I don't know fucking for what. Just a cyst or is there structural damage? I don't know. That's all I heard. So I don't know if he can physically get through four rounds of this long ass course in the fucking heat. Sahith Theegala, he's at 46th. It's basically win or finish second. And that's courtesy of the PGA Tour website. I mean, this really isn't a path where he shoots like 4 nice rounds, finishes 14th, and hope the math works out. He needs to contend for the whole fucking tournament. Started the year well, and then he hasn't had top 10 since Houston in March. Best finish of the season was, I mean, basically has to happen right here, right now. And then coincidentally enough, who's the first group off the tee at 10:03 a.m. Eastern? Justin Thomas and Sahith Theegala. They still got favorable tee times. Now, we said early morning tees. Again, because there's only 50 players, a little bit later start to the day. 10:03 Eastern is their first tee time. I still like anybody fucking before like 12:30, 1 o'clock. Better than I do some in the afternoon, like first round leader-wise. So, again, a lot on the line at East Lake. Those are some of the guys on the bubble. Tour cards, seasons, not just the FedEx Cup. Because this Tour Championship, if you move on, it does carry access to 2027 majors and top 6 automatic spots for the U.S. President's Cup team. So Patrick Cantlay, for example, look, he's not running one race here. He's got 2 races. He's at FedEx Cup, President's Cup, and look, in his case, it's like a win could really move him into the top 12 in the President's Cup points. So let's get 2 leaderboards again Sunday afternoon. I mean, 6 different players that you're watching on these fucking leaderboards. Minimum, right? So the live betting, right? I mean, this is great for live betting because, look, this whole blueprint, guide, whatever you want to call it, model that we just put together for 2 hours now. This isn't just a Wednesday night pick show for Thursday round 1. Everything we went through is going to help you on the replay to go through this because it's a lot that we went through. But again, it should help you as you're live betting, placing your bets before tee times tomorrow, and like I said, and throughout the remaining 3 days. I mean, you're gonna see guys that are around the bubble. You're gonna know what somebody needs, right? Knowing like what somebody needs, like that can change how they have to play totally. Like Sahith Theegala can't just go out and protect like a, 14, 15, 16 finish. Like he needs fucking second place here. Justin Thomas, well, he can't be satisfied sitting tied for 18th Sunday morning. Cantlay, he's going to have to attack at some point. Gary Woodland, well, a little bit different for Gary Woodland. I mean, it's a little bit different incentive for Gary Woodland. I mean, look, if Gary Woodland is comfortably beating guys around the bubble, then he doesn't really have to chase shit on that brutal final stretch of holes, right? So, bunch of guys, all different spots. I mean, look, you have tournament position, FedEx position, course position. There's all types of shit going on. I mean, look at what happened last week in Memphis. That I was on here during the final round, and I keep refreshing, and fucking Jordan Spieth up, down, other guys up, down. It's just you couldn't refresh it fast enough. And I feel like that's what's going to happen this week. There's more on the line, more of a pressure cooker. You're going to see, and especially again, that closing stretch of holes is going to be brutal. So, you know, and then again, for live betting, use this guide. You know, it's, you know, there's a lot on the line, and where these guys are situated on the tournament board, the FedEx board, could dictate how they're playing Saturday and Sunday. Sunday for sure. But this is a blueprint for the whole 4 days. So, so we gave you everything: courses, the conditions, what happened in 2018. You know, tee to green was the dominant trend stat, whatever you want to call it. We said that's the heaviest weighted stat that we're using. Approach play, another one. We know distance matters. We kept hammering the stat with the rough, how penal it is if you're hitting out of the rough. The sweet spot window to maybe gain on Scheffler, 175 to 200, 250 on your approach play there. Also, sand saves, because Scheffler's 55th in sand saves. The bunker. You know, and know the bubble, where these guys are at, and what players are checking multiple boxes. So, again, I'll have everything posted on Pikkit, at Off the Hook, on X, Twitter, whatever, at OTH Sports Pod. But it'll be posted 10:03 a.m. is the first tee time, a little bit later tee time, again, because of the, well, it's only fucking 50 guys. So, I don't know why, honestly, I don't know why they don't do it earlier. It's going to be fucking hot as hell, but whatever. It's 10:03. So, I guess it gives me a little bit more time to ponder my thoughts and how I'm going to play this and what parlays I'm going to add together. That's always good, too, parlays. We've cashed now a couple weeks in a row in parlays. Like, I don't know, like, place, you know, this guy finished top 10, this guy to finish top 5, top 20, whatever, put them together. Got lucky. Probably won't happen again, but whatever. It's fun. I mean, not fucking remortgaging the house here. But that is the betting guide for the BMW Championship. That's a wrap. Look, if the show gave you a reason to think differently, laugh a little, maybe you found a different edge, different angle you didn't have before, it's all about here at Off the Hook. Love to have you along for the ride. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on X at OTH Sports Pod. Every subscription, every follow, every share, it all helps us keep continuing to grow this thing the right way. We're here 5 days a week, building the sports betting community the right way. No paywalls, no VIP packages, no subscription fees. The sports talk, betting insight, community of people trying to get a little bit better every day. You come for the bet, stay for the hang. And again, final card will be posted at OTH Sports Pod on X and on Pikkit at Off the Hook. So make sure you check that out before we'll have it posted. Oh, fuck, it's midnight here. Early morning, probably like 5, 6 a.m. it'll be posted. So, and then we're here throughout the rest of the tournament the next 4 days. So, and as always, we are powered by Pikkit. If you're not using Pikkit, come on, what are you doing? Go download the Pikkit app, Google Play Store, the App Store, set up your account, put in code OTH, come have fun with us on Pikkit. It's what powers the show. It's how we track all our bets, all the line movements, all in one place with the Pikkit app, and it powers the Pikkit Play of the Day, which we will have tomorrow on our regular live show. And we are back here tomorrow afternoon, early evening-ish. I don't know, we'll fucking post it on X when we're back here. But we're back here tomorrow get you caught up. We'll go across the diamond with Major League Baseball, latest NFL training camp news. Of course, we'll have a golf update. Get you a Tommy Trend, Tommy's Take, Pikkit Play of the Day, and whatever else goes completely off the fucking rails between now and then. Live Golf, Penn State cocaine story. We'll dive into that. Look, if Tee to Green brought you here tonight, come hang out tomorrow where we open the whole damn sports book and go through everything tomorrow. And oh yeah, by the way, football betting is your thing. 4th and Goal is rolling right now. We've been working our way through the NFL division by division each week, breaking down the rosters, offseason moves, win totals, fucking futures, all that shit. NFC East with Dustin Sweetelson is up there. We did that last week. We also did AFC East with Dustin a couple weeks back. All we have left is AFC South this week, and then next week will be the NFC South. And we also owe you a college football preview too, which will be up probably later this week. But 4th and Goal is up now. Go check that playlist out on YouTube at OTH Sports Pod. I'm Tommy Trends. As always, Mookie and Nash stare me down. It's walkie time. Tell me to shut the fuck up. It's Off the Hook, sports talk that pays off. Remember, sports books don't give refunds. Do your homework. Shop the lines with Pikkit. Never stop looking for an edge. Good luck on your bets for the BMW Championship. We're back here tomorrow afternoon. Let's cook the books. Let's cash some tickets. It's walkie time. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck. Good night.